Anytime Maritime.
Anytime Maritime. Anytime Maritime. It's Anytime Maritime.
Anytime Maritime. Anytime Maritime.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Anytime Maritime. Time flies so fast. Tuesday na naman po, and I remember last Tuesday that I was telling you I was going to Crew Connect conference, and I wanted to update you on that. That was really a very active, busy Crew Connect conference where the gathering of manning agencies um, hiring, foreign companies hiring Filipino seafarers gathered and met, and together with the international nonprofit organizations like ICE One, Maritide, ITF, ICS, gathered in one room. And my biggest takeaway would be, of course, decarbonization and the path towards decarbonization in the transition era, as well as the importance of the Philippines in the maritime world. That's why foreigners come and converge in the Philippines. To think about our industry. So yes, exciting yan. Also, last Friday, I was at the Kongsberg Sim Connect, or the gathering of simulator educators, as hosted by Kongsberg. And as you know, we are using simulators in the training of our cadets and crew members in FastCat. And yeah, I was happy to be there too. Um, I see a brighter future with this technology being used for the maritime industry. And so, thank you, Kongsberg, for having me at the SimConnect 2025. And I was telling people there that it was my first time to be at the City of Dreams. Can you believe that? Pilipina po, pero nakatira sa Pilipinas, pero first time ko magpunta sa City of Dreams. And yeah, that was nice. So thank you, Kongsberg. And today, it's another Tuesday, and ang bilis ng panahon. Our guest today is a repeat guest of Anytime Maritime. We have had her before, and I see her in a lot of maritime conferences, very active, or maritime events, very active in the field. And I'm very, very happy to have her again. Today, our topic is the architects of change, empowering women in Philippine shipbuilding for national development. Friends, in Anytime Maritime, let us call on our friend, the very beautiful, young, active engineering manager of Green World Marine Services Corporation and an advisor to the Alliance of Naval Architecture and Marine Engineering Students of the Philippines. Let us call on Engineer Trisha M. Hervasio. Yay!
Hi. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be back the second time around in Anytime Maritime. Thank you for having me once again.
Yeah, thank you, Trisha. It was nice seeing you at the Phil Norway event. And of course, the Soname events that happened a few months back. So, kamusta ka, Trisha? How are you doing?
Well, I feel ecstatic po. I just attended a conference, the shipbuilding and ship repair revitalizing the of that industry with the Embassy of Denmark, Marina, and other government agencies. And I had the opportunity to be voted in our breakout session and then be the voice for our topic and present it among all of the participants of that forum. So still in awe that I was the one voted by them, and it was a great meeting and conference on how to revitalize the shipbuilding and ship repair industry.
Oh, precisely why we want you to be here in Anytime Maritime, because we wanted to hear about that. Talagang, Trisha, nararamdaman mo ba yung suporta ng ating mga kaibigan from other countries, especially the European countries, like, yun na nga, sila kakasabi mo lang, Denmark, and then we saw each other in the Phil, Norway, and then yun nga, Crew Connect, ang dami nating bisita. And so you were saying you just, again, had a conference and you, with the Dutch, tama ba? Dutch government ang nag-host yan. Or Danish ba? Sino
Yes,
ba?
with the Dutch. Yes.
Dutch. Okay, tell us about it. Tell us about it, Trisha. That's why
Danish for the mark.
Denmark. Oh, so Danish government. They're very active in helping us and gathering us
Yes.
because they are in the forefront of shipbuilding or technology and green shipping. So sige, kwento mo naman sa amin, Trisha. So ano ba ang natutuhan mo dun sa conference na inattendan mo? And why we want to talk about it is because for our young anytime maritimers and also of course our other stakeholders, we get a lot out of conferences, di ba? We learn a lot, and when we're there, we're represented. We bring our flag with us when we're there. So yeah, what did you get in that conference that you attended? How do we revitalize the shipbuilding industry in the Philippines, Trisha?
Okay, so when I attended the conference, at first I wasn't expected to be invited because it was a really, let's just say, high profile event. Like all of the government officials were there. There was a secretary for government agencies there. ASIC was there. USEC was there. And it was overwhelming when I arrived there. It was overwhelming. But what's great about this conference, it didn't focus on the technicalities only. What made it different is it wanted to understand the gap on why the innovation is not happening in the Philippines. They emphasize that the technology is readily available, it's readily accessible, so why aren't the Philippines adapting this technology? And in that forum, it was highlighted about how the shipbuilding sector, the ship repair sector, needed more government support. And at the same time, have the policies and guidelines be implemented effectively with stakeholders so that they could fully implement this new innovation without breaking their, let's say, business. Because when you adapt technology, we highlighted that it's an extensive investment with a high risk. And that's why private stakeholders or even have the difficulty to adopt this technology.
Trisha,
Am I clear?
yeah, Trisha, you're breaking up. You're breaking up. That's why I hardly understood what you said. Um, paano ba?
Hold on.
Paano natin kaya improvein yung ating
Hold on.
Wi-Fi and our connection, please?
I'll
So,
change my connection.
yeah, please, 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 because you're breaking up and
Yes,
freezing
I'm
in
on it.
yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah,
Is this better? Is this better?
yeah. Better, Trisha, better.
Okay, mas okay po to.
Yes.
Okay.
Sige,
Okay.
I guess you
So,
have to.
what's great
I guess
about the
you have to.
the Denmark conference?
Yes. Go.
To summarize it, to keep it simple, it focused on how to get support from the government and how the stakeholders can coordinate with the government agency to come up with a realistic plan on implementing the technology, because they emphasize that the problem is not about the accessibility of the technology. Rather, they want to know what is the gap, what's preventing us from implementing it in the Philippines. So that was the main focus of the conference. And I really like that about the presentations from the Filipinos and the Denmark, the collaboration on brainstorming on how we can make it happen. And from our breakout session, we highlighted three things or recommended three things. Number one is to have government support in terms of the finances, like incentives and investments. And then the second one is the collaboration of all government agencies so that policies and guidelines won't overlap and that there won't be any redundancies, and truly consider the nitty gritty of every policy and guideline so that it can be implemented in an easy and effective way. Because some stakeholders said that although there are already guidelines, there are already incentives, programs by the government, it is very difficult to apply, or that the process is very lengthy and it makes them discouraged to actually do it. And then lastly is we highlighted about the connectivity, reliability of these technologies, because we explained, for example, the Pasig River, even if we have an electric vessel there, that we have, the government has supported it, the technology is there, but we have to discuss about how to sustain a business. And this really needs to be discussed with our audience, or should I say our consumers, our passengers. How many passengers will really use an electric ferry? How convenient is it for them? How easy is it for them? How convenient is it for them? How easy is it for them to access the facilities? Do they consider the passenger?
We're losing you again. But yeah, how interesting to know more about technology and yan, electric ferries in Pasig. Totoo po yan, may na-launch na and I wanted to get also an update on that, Trisha. So we're talking about technology. So you're saying technology is available. When you say technology is available, are you saying the availability of like batteries for electric ships? Yan ba yung pinag-uusapang technology doon sa inyong shipbuilding conference? Trisha? Hello? Hi. I think we lost her. But yeah, people, yung sinasabi po ni Trisha about Pasig River ferries. Have you ever wondered why we are not able to have or build a ferry system along Pasig that is successful, that is used every day, and part of our lifestyle every day? And isa po yun nga sa problem na nakikita, no? So the connection must be there. You must be connected to the grid, your schedule, the land, the schedule in the main artery of EDSA, for example. The schedule of the ferry must be parang aligned or um, efficient so that people get to use it, no? And then of course the landings also pinag-uusapan po yun doon. Kaya hindi siya successful. Aside from the fact na maraming water lily, anong design ng barko ang dapat ilagay sa Pasig River ferries? And our country has been talking about this for the longest time, but quite unsuccessful. I know that the Magsaysay group for a while connected and deployed vessel there, at nakwento nga po nila na hindi naging successful kasi kinakain ng engine nila yung mga dumi, debris, water lilies, and nasisira yung barko. So, hindi natutuloy. And of course, yung mga landing stations, does it feel safe? Is it well lighted? May mga bubong ba? Convenient ba? And recently, I think that was a month ago, there is a ferry service, electric boat ferry service that started. And yes, I wanted to get a feedback on that from Trisha, but I guess we lost her, and hoping that she is going to come back. Jobert, is Trisha coming back? I hope she comes back. Masama yung signal niya. But yeah, very interesting. And again, yung nakuha ko po kay Trisha, it's about parang naiisip ko, chicken and egg. Sino ba ang magli-lead sa atin? Government ba? Private sector ba? Global community ba? Di ba? Hindi naman tayo kasi sabay-sabay ng growth. But yeah, ideally, it's the government who should be having policies in place and encouraging the domestic sector or the private sector to build and support, or kahit sila, no, government to really lead and start all of these initiatives. Um, that's what I wonder why and how we can get there. Trisha,
How
ano na sa atin? Yes. Okay,
I
lumipat ka na.
transferred to my phone. The
Okay, okay.
Wi-Fi is faster on my phone than my
Better.
laptop.
Yeah. Siguro better. Okay. So Trisha, we were talking about technology. So, yung technology, can you specify yung mga technology talaga na napag-usapan ninyo? What you were saying, available technology. What are those available technology that you were talking about?
The number one technology that they always emphasize is the electric vessels, the full electric and the hybrid vessels.
Yeah.
However, as of now, there are limitations for this type of propulsion to bigger vessels. For bigger vessels, they suggest the use of LNG or LPG, or in the future, the use of ammonia. So these are the technology that they want to adapt for green shipping, not only in the Philippines but globally.
Yeah, that's true. So we are in a transition era, no? Siguro kung babalikan natin, Trisha, yung panahon na kabayo pa lang ang ginagamit for transportation and then na-imbento yung kotse. So siguro yung mga horse owners at that time, they also had their agam-agam, their doubts and their resistance to change. But look, nagkaroon na tayo ng mga kotse. And so for the longest time, we are using cars, using gas or diesel, but now we are in a transition era from fossil fuels to now alternative fuels, and that's what you talked about. And so, Trisha, so you were saying, okay, may available ng technology in other countries, they have successfully decarbonized, and you know, in the principle of sustainability, we must all go together in one direction with no one left behind. And you were talking about that okay, may technology na ano yung issue sa Pilipinas? What are the issues why we cannot implement? And so when you were still out of the room, I kind of talked
So when
about
you were still
asking,
out of the room, I kind of talked about.
nagbabounce.
So the issues, the number one issue there was really about the financing, because it's really expensive, tremendously expensive. So one of the stakeholders there emphasized that if they had the government support for these loans, these incentives, they would be able to get this type of technology, because what they're worried about is the return of investments if they make this type of innovation implemented here. And at the same time, they really worry about their cash flow. They emphasize that in a business, cash flow is very important. If there's no cash flow and all your money is just in paper, it will definitely stop your business. So if you have, let's say, a passenger vessel from this island to this island, and you have around, let's say, 50 passengers or 100 passengers daily, if you convert the diesel engine to electric engine, would the daily operations with that 100 passengers be enough to sustain that kind of propulsion system immediately? Because when you use an electric vessel, of course, it's guaranteed that 50% of your operational costs will decrease, because fuel is also expensive. But that kind of reduction in costs can be felt in the long run, not on just the first year, on the second year. So that's really the biggest worry of our stakeholders. Can they survive the first few years of this transition? That is why they're asking the government to prepare incentives as well. And then better loans, they said, better loans.
So I
So
wonder kung
this
merong
applies in almost every sector.
I wonder kung merong mga taga-bangko doon. Merong bang nag-attend? I know
So with the banks there, I've only noticed Developmental Bank of the Philippines. But other well-known banks like BDO, BPI, China Bank, the banks that we commonly use, they were not there. Hopefully, next conferences, maybe they could attend because I've met a lot of ship owners during my work, while working in the Korean company. They always emphasize that the loan interest here is so difficult or so high in DBP, and then if for alternatives, they don't have any alternatives. There was one time I have a relative from China Bank. He's my cousin's husband, and then he's a business manager, branch manager there before, and he wanted to understand why aren't there any loans for ships? There are loans for cars, but right now he's still working on it. He's studying why it's happening, but of course, if we have higher people joining those conferences, maybe they for vessels, not just for cars, not just for motors, but for vessels. Hopefully, in the future, there will be.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We need the support of
Yeah,
banks
that's
to
true. That's true. We need the
yeah.
support of banks. Yeah.
Jobert, we need to fix our
Then
internet.
the second thing,
Robert, we need to fix our.
the second problem for or what makes the Philippines difficult to adapt to is technology.
Trisha, sige, please continue. Sorry. I think Jobert's fixing our tech issues. But yeah, ano yung second problem you were talking about?
Fixing our tech issue.
Okay. So, Jobert just sent me a Viber message saying may problem sa internet ni guest. Okay. So, syempre, a-adlib tayo dito ngayon. So, hello anytime Maritimers, and if you have comments, chats, please do so, and put it in the chat box para naman magkwentuhan po tayo dito sa Anytime Maritime. Alam niyo po, nakita rin kami ni Trisha sa Korea, because she was also there for the Korean Maritime Week, and she's being very active there. And I wanted to ask her about that too. Kung kamusta naman ang working with the Korean Shipbuilding Association, and what help she can what help the Koreans are extending to us Filipinos, and the partnership and cooperation between our countries was actually one of the questions that we wanted to do. Okay, while Trisha's
While
connection is
Trisha's connection is
Trisha, may problema sa ating internet because nag-bounce
Trisha,
back.
may ating internet because nag-bounce back.
Yes, I don't know. I've tried my home Wi-Fi, but thank you for your patience.
Okay, so you were talking about the second issue, Trisha.
Okay,
Aside,
so you were talking about the second issue, Trisha.
Yes,
Aside,
yes. The second issue is stakeholders believe, actually, I actually agree with this, that the Philippines is not ready to adapt this technology in terms of infrastructures. For example, if we make all our small vessels into electric, we don't have the charging stations in the country, where our ports are not ready for electrification. So, what will happen to an electric vessel if its ports are not ready? If it doesn't have charging stations? Imagine it like this: you have BYD cars already here, and if there aren't any charging stations, what will happen? Consumers won't use it, then that kind of technology would stop. That's why they emphasize that number one should be the policies and government support. Second is to prepare our infrastructures first. Then only do we try or buy this new type of green shipping. Because they said shipping doesn't end with the ship. It's an ecosystem, a maritime ecosystem that works together to make it successful.
I agree.
So we need everyone here.
I agree.
So we talked about financing,
So we
government policy,
financing, government
and infrastructure. So, what is Soname and your work with the Korean stakeholders is doing, and what do they have to say about what you just said, Trisha? Are you hopeful? May mangyayari ba sa atin? Kasi kung pakikinggan natin talaga yung mga issues, parang ang tindi, baka naman mapag-iwanan tayong mga Pilipino. Parang all the European countries are now transitioning to alternative fuel. And now we have issues on government policy, infrastructure, financing. The ecosystem is yet to be built. But what does Soname have to say? And what are our partnerships with other countries doing to push this agenda forward? Trisha. So people, we're experiencing tech
Regards to
issues.
So
Sonome.
people, we're experiencing tech issues.
With
But
regards to Sonome, upon talking with
But
them,
but
um, there are many projects nowadays about electric vessels from school institutions and even government institutions. So there have been some projects wherein they're designing an electric vessel without a naval architect. So that's one of Sonoma's movement nowadays, that when you're going to make a vessel, it's important that you consult with a licensed naval architect. That's why they say Soname, so that all of your planning and investment, well, let's just say minimize the cost for unplanned repairs or changes for guidance. Because sometimes, even if you have a good design on your own, you have to consider the stability. And I think what makes naval architecture different from other engineering is that we study the concept of stability and buoyancy. I think that's what makes our profession different from other engineering. So that's very important for a ship, the stability and its buoyancy.
yeah,
With
that's
regards
true.
on the Korean side,
yeah, that's
with regards to the Korean side, they agree with what Denmark has said, that the Philippines infrastructure is not ready. That is why every time we try to talk with Filipino shipyards for possible joint ventures, the Koreans always say that we will provide the technology, but you must invest on the development of your infrastructures before we have a joint venture. They know that even if you have a advanced or innovative vessel, if your infrastructure is not ready, the movement of this said technology would have difficulties. And that is why right now there still isn't a successful joint venture, because to invest for a private sector to invest on their infrastructure alone, that's very extensive for them. That is why there has only been MOUs and no joint ventures. But nevertheless, most foreigners are here willing to invest in Filipinos for the shipbuilding and ship repair industry. But their mine or primary concerns always about the government policies and the existing infrastructures. If we resolve those two things, I think it would be very easy for the private sector to adapt this new technology. Because even the foreigners have the same opinion on what is the gap or the hindrance of having Philippines as a prime mover for shipbuilding and ship repair in the most advanced way.
Yeah,
They all have the same opinions, no matter the nationality.
that's true. It's like saying we must, they're helping us, but we must help ourselves first by setting up the infrastructure in place. Uh, Nakakalungkot, Trisha, kasi in relation to what's going on in our country, that we see how our politicians are, you know, so corrupt, stealing funds, government funds, when we now see that we need a lot of infrastructure. And when they steal from this flood control issues, wala tayong nagagawa sa infrastructure. So that pulls us back. So Trisha, I'm curious, for young idealistic Filipina, what's your take on what's going on, and how do you see us moving
And
forward?
how do you see us moving forward?
Since I'm young, oh my gosh, I remember something that happened during the forum. So being young, I I I told them about my ideas, and then I received a very challenging remark from someone. She or he, let's not this told me, "You're very young, so I understand your naive interpretation or plans for the country, but you're being too idealistic and it can be foolish." That was said to me up front during the breakout session. But I told him or her that that's the I accept that comment. Yes, I am idealistic. I can be seen as having too much optimism. But I told them, if you want to make a change, the foundation should be having the dedication, the motivation, and inspiration to do it. Because if you're not positive, if you're not hopeful, there won't be a start for change. And those type of traits is needed because when you make a change, everyone is afraid. If there isn't a courageous person who would step up, this type of change, this wave, would not even happen in the first place. So I told him, as much as it's important that we discuss the hindrances and the challenges, we should also pay attention on the emotions of the people, because what is motivation? It is having the motive and to do action. And then maybe that's the reason why they voted me to present all of our ideas. I didn't want to focus on the problems itself. I wanted to focus more on how we can remain hopeful in spite of all of these challenges or discouraging news. Because if you stop, if you don't be, if you're not hopeful, then what's even the point of this innovation? So, to my fellow youth and veterans in the industry, I hope that we can remain hopeful and positive. Because if we don't, then what's the point of even trying? That's my
That
opinion.
Yeah, that is
That,
true.
yeah, that is true.
That's the reason why we have Trisha here, and again, because of her positivity, her general optimism for our industry, her courage, and the desire for change in our country. And so, as our title says, empowering women in the Philippine shipbuilding for national development, we wanted to ask Trisha, being an advisor to the Alliance of Naval Architecture and Marine Engineering Students of the Philippines, or ANA MESP, an active member of SONAME, uh, are there a lot of students now taking up naval architecture and marine engineering in the Philippines? How is the community of Soname? I know from Sam Lim that there are changes. In fact, the head of Soname is now a lady engineer based in Cebu, and I think Trisha is also an active member there. But yeah, for those for our anytime maritimers, Trisha, kamusta naman ang community ng Soname at ang kababaihan sa Soname? Tell us about it, please.
About it, please.
Okay. The numbers are definitely increasing, but I wouldn't say that we've become a big population. For the recent board exam, there were more than 100 takers, but about half of it passed. Congratulations to Leia. I'm really happy for you. Then, with the school side, it's also increasing. We have another school coming from Iloilo. So, there would be, once that they start enrollment, there would be 9 schools offering BS NAME. But we have to consider that although these are 9 schools, about there are only about, let's say, 500 enrollees from first year to fourth year. So it'll be about like 50 graduates every year. And that's a small number considering to the demand of naval architecture. So I'll give you a hint, and to keep you encouraged to stay in naval architecture. The reason why I talked to my Danish friend, they said that the reason why they want to go to the Philippines, not just for the ship repair and shipbuilding, is because they are in need of naval architects. So some history here, in Europe, they're not actually active in the shipbuilding anymore. They're more focused on ship design and ship research. But nowadays, due to the tension with Russia, China, and possible wars, they want to build up their shipbuilding sector again, primarily on their naval defense for their national security. But they said it's been so many years and they don't have a pool of architects, so they were hoping to get in the Philippines. Although our numbers are higher on naval architects compared to Denmark, but the demand is still high. So I really encourage that every student in naval architecture to do your own marketing, because I bet if someone approaches you and they ask you, anong course mo, iha? And then you say, BS namin po. And then they said, BS namin? Name? What's the name of your course? That's what I'm asking. No, it's naval architecture and marine engineering. So, you should have the initiative to market yourself on your own, because the best type of marketing is word of mouth. And I know, marami na akong nabudol sa inyo pag nakakausap ko kayo sa Philmarine, sa Beacon Expo, sa Cebu Maritime Expo. Marami na akong nilalang binudol ko mag-enroll ng VS namin. Sundan nyo pa, damihan nyo pa para ma-meet naman natin yung demand locally and internationally. Hindi ba man isipin na ang magiging prime mover ng naval architecture ay Philippines? We're already doing it in seafaring, so why not in shipbuilding? So that's the dream.
Good to know, Trisha, that you're very
Good
positive
to know,
about it.
Trish.
I think Trisha, yan, ganyan. I think when I speak, kailangan mute si Trisha because it bounces back. And Jobert sending me a message that it's actually the internet connection. Anyway, that's good to know. I was chatting with Sam Lim of Soname in a Soname event a few months back, and he was saying that they're also tapping University of the Philippines to also offer NAME. And yeah, so NAME is the Society of Naval Architects and Marine Engineers is working on that so that they really build capacity. And so people, anytime maritimers, think about it. We only have 9 schools and 500 enrollees when we are supposed to be a maritime nation and a shipbuilding nation. And listening to Trisha, it's like um, kung magpapagawa po tayo ng bahay or building, hindi ba kailangan kukuha tayo ng architect, kukuha tayo ng structural engineer na magsisiguro na maayos yung pinapatayo nating bahay. So it's the same with the boat. And we've seen that happen, Trisha, in the Pasig River when like the authorities there would build boats, and yeah, and you were talking about hindi man nagkonsulta sa naval architect, they just built it on their own. So what happens, wala, lulubog or hindi nagagamit or nasisira because of hindi na consider yung the design of the ship or the boat for the conditions at the Pasig River. And of course, again, we were talking about the infrastructure. So now very active sila, 500 and more schools offering that. So Trisha, I talked to a school owner, maritime school owner, and I said, oh, why aren't you offering, I asked why they're not offering NAME, and they were saying walang takers. And now we hear Trisha say that there is a demand in the international market for naval architects and marine engineers because also because of the transition. So, Trisha, are you prepared to take on this transition of alternative fuels or electric vessels? Or do you think the curriculum being offered is also changed so that we can adapt to the new requirements of the shipping industry?
shipping industry.
I'd like to say, rather than prepared, the right term is preparing. It's preparing. The current curriculum we have, it's not ready, or let's say not ready is not the term. Rather, the concept of electric propulsion and LNG propulsion or other alternative fuels aren't embedded in the current curriculum. This is not just for naval architects, it also applies to our seafarers. Right now, in the Korean side, I don't know yet in the Philippines, but on the Korean side, they are already adjusting their curriculums for the 3 courses in or programs in the maritime industry: marine transportation, marine engineering, and naval architecture and marine engineering or ocean engineering. They are already adding elective courses to their program so that they could fully utilize the concept and operate LNG or electric and other alternative fuels. Because if you change a fuel, there will be a lot of changes in the operations. So some schools in the Korea now are having new simulators at their universities and new laboratories for testing for naval architects. So they're currently ongoing. Maybe not ongoing. I think it's already finished. They already finished the adjustments of their curriculum and the preparations for their new laboratories and simulators there. I've seen it myself. For the Philippines, I think that there are already some talks about consultancy on adjusting these curriculums, and at the same time, what should be the first investment for these simulators and laboratories to have it on their schools. Because it's very important that when you change it into electric, let's say electric, it's a completely different system. So you need new training for that. Same goes with LNG. If it's LNG powered, you need new training for that. If it's a hybrid vessel, you need new training for that. Because let's just say the number one common thing is if you have a fire on an electric vessel, the current fire extinguishers that you used for a diesel engine, it's not effective. That is why they need to undergo new training, new learning for the theory. So rather than saying that we're prepared, I'd say that we are preparing. And it's good to know that we're still preparing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tech issues pa din talaga tayo, no, Jobert? But
Tech issues pa din talaga tayo, no, Jobert? But
oh my Lord, I'm sad about this. Kung kayo nakikinig sa atin, I'm sure it's not very smooth and comfortable to listen to with these tech issues. Um, pero ano gagawin natin? Ano gagawin natin, Jobert? Jobert, so I guess we will end the session early because it's kind of distracting. Kung ako man po yung nakikinig, hindi rin ako comfortable na maraming tech issues na nangyayari. I don't know if Trisha can still come back, but I guess Jobert will have to. Okay, ayan na. I don't like the bouncing kasi of the sound. But Jobert, maybe we can share videos to them or a conference that we have on file and call Trisha about this. Sorry about these tech issues. That's the problem pagka live. We have not encountered this bad of a tech issue in our previous episodes. But I guess ito talaga yung problema. So I would like to apologize for this, and we will have to end the podcast earlier than usual. But we will be coming back and sharing with you videos of the conferences that we have attended globally. When you see the videos, ito po yung nangyayari sa mga conference abroad at maraming pong matututuhan, and we are making it available to our Anytime Maritime timers. I hope you learn a lot the way we did when we attended the conference, and it's very good to be relevant and to be in the know, and sana po may ma-pick up po kayo a thing or two in the conferences that we will share. So, Jobert, are we good? Can you share the conferences? And for now, I'm signing off. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I will call Trisha, Jobert. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Design, and during my presentation today I'll try to give you a little insight of what we see as the future of especially electrification and double enders. Just a snapshot on where we are today in OSK. You have seen these pictures maybe before, but large RoPax vessels, the Moby Fantasy on the upper left is the world's largest RoPax vessel. And then we have the P&O Pioneer in the middle, where we achieved 40% fuel saving on a battery hybrid solution. And then the latest from TT Line, the Peter Pan. But also on the electrical side, I've included two ships at the bottom. Fanø was the first all-electric. Linie Nertus has just been delivered 2 months ago as it's sailing on a domestic route. It's the first all-electric ferry also predefined for autonomy or prepared for autonomy. And then I brought Gotlandsbolaget, since Jonas was also here on the presentation stage today, to just remind us about that very nice project you have over there. But let's say the first case I'm going to show you is the project that we have developed for Molslinjen and their new high-speed ferries. Not long ago, it was considered or conceived as being impossible to do a high-speed ferry of this magnitude in all electric. And so I'm pleased that OSK has been in the driving seat, together with Molslinjen, of course, about the development of this project. With its size and its capacity, we have achieved by a lot of optimization the possibilities, but there has also been cut some corners to make it possible. We have looked a little bit about the port infrastructures. You will see that this is the first vessel which is drive-through. It hasn't been on a fast ferry for a long time, not since Molslinjen did it some 20 years ago. But it can do the crossing in 1.5 hours with a battery capacity of 45 megawatt. So we have heard much about the charging systems, and I'm not going to dwell into that, just to mention that we have a CO2 reduction of 32,000 tons each year on this route. It represents a significant part of the Danish CO2 from the ferry fleet. Yeah. And then another case, that's what we developed also for Gotland when the tender was opened last time for Gotland. And by this project, we achieved a 3 hours and 15 minute crossing with 26 knots on a double ender, pure electric. And that has some significant implications. You would see that we have 3 azimuth units in each end of the vessel. It's a pure double ender. It's a diesel electric hybrid in the sense that we have engines with backup, because we know that charging infrastructure fails from time to time. And it has a steel hull with alu superstructure. You can see here we move towards the direction of what Johan was also explaining yesterday in his talks about introducing aluminium and work with the lightweight construction of the ferries. But with this vessel here, we are capable of sailing between Gotland and mainland in 3 hours. The current operation is 3 hours, and we have added 15 minutes, and that's what it takes to do an electric route. But when we then look at the energy consumption for such a route, you can see that in 3 hours and 15 minutes, we burn 43,000 kilowatts of, so it's comparable to what we do at Molslinjen these days. And you can see that the speed is only 22.8. So we reduce the speed requirement a little as we have added 15 minutes to the crossing. But what brings us to a new level is that the average CO2 content per kilowatt in Sweden last year was 41 gram of CO2. And that means that we can do the full crossing in just 1.8 ton of CO2 with an electrification. I'm, of course, super interested to hear about the numbers for the project that you have, Jonas, on your drawing board these days. And as we heard earlier this morning also about Stena Electra and so forth, you can see that the similar case can be built up at Frederikshavn and in Tallinn and as I say here on Visby. Some of the key takeaways in this is that when we have these large capacities, shore capacity is needed. We need to establish battery banks at shoreside to be able to charge constantly and then fast charge into the vessels. But it's also super important that ship owners try to look holistic at the power infrastructure, because there can also be a business model around this power source so that you contribute to the society. In Denmark now we have flat rate on electric vehicles. You can charge for 100 euros per month, flat rate. And some operators, they are now giving a discount on 50% if you put your car's battery back to the community so that the utility company can pull and push energy into the electric cars. And it is exactly the same with this type of battery storage. We have to remember that additional business model because it will add to the benefit of the vessel and the infrastructure in total. Yeah. Then I'll talk a little bit about Lightcraft. Lightcraft was also mentioned by the panelist yesterday, Johan, and it has some significant implications. I have brought a series of vessels that we have designed all the way from a 40-meter double-ender, 70 and a 95, so they are already fully designed in OSK, and they are in 100% aluminum prepared for once the approval is in place. We have 4 routes which are interested in this technology, and so these capacities match, of course, their requirements. Some renderings of the vessel, you can see it's a typical double-ender. It has a hoistable car deck, and this 95-meter vessel has a capacity for around 600 passengers and 180 cars. But when we look at the first vessel I showed you, the Grotte, which is in the second column, that's a fully electric vessel already today with aluminium superstructure. And it was built 3 years ago. So if we go full electric on that route with an aluminium double-ender instead, just 3 years ago, we can now reduce 33% on the fuel economy. And the same is for the second green column, the Tyrfing. Here we can see that is the new build that has just been delivered 2 months ago from Turkey. And if we were allowed to build that vessel 100% aluminium, there's an additional 35% energy consumption reduction. And then we have Princess Isabella, which is the first LNG-powered vessel. Here we have a 30% reduction. That vessel sails much more on a shallow water area, and therefore the benefits are not so high because Isabella was built 10 years ago and it's a steel structure. So you could expect more, but there are other constraints that limit that saving potential. Good. So that was all from me. OSK, steered by vision, powered by insight. Happy to take any questions afterwards. And then I would like to give the floor to Pino and Andrea and hear about the Volvo patient.
Hi everyone, it's an honor to be able to speak to you all at my very first Interferry. It's a pleasure to be here. I think Telenor Maritime is better known for you as a provider of world-class connectivity at sea. But today we are looking beyond connectivity toward unlocking real insights, intelligent automation, and new business value through better use of data. So let's look at what the industry is asking for and why it's not always easy to deliver. The goals are clear. We want smarter operations. We have a younger workforce that expect more mobile devices on board, and we want faster innovation. But the reality? Well, legacy systems and disconnected data often stand in the way. Innovation will be won through smarter systems, empowered crews, and AI that understands the real world. And after looking at the previous slide with the challenges, I think it's clear. AI is not just another tool, it's a force multiplier. But apart from helping me creating beautiful illustrations for this presentation, AI will play an important role in improving quality and efficiency of operations on board the ship. Let's take predictive maintenance as an example. The ship sensors, they collect vital data like engine temperature and vibration, as described in our previous talk. The AI modules, they process the data in real time, spotting early signs of issues and predicting failures. And the maintenance teams are then receiving alerts on their mobile devices before the breakdowns, allowing timely repairs and reducing unnecessary servicing. And the result is then we get less surprises, reduced downtime, and we get better decisions through human-machine collaboration. So AI offers smarter decisions, faster operations, and greater efficiency. Yet, in maritime, that promise can feel out of reach. Because if we look at the core, the problem, there's some initial problem here. Because if we look at AI as the engine, then the data is the fuel. And right now, most maritime data is disconnected and hard to use. It's stuck in silos, locked in old systems, or missing important context. So we spend more time fixing the data problems than actually spend on driving innovation. So imagine running an airport where each of the terminals speaks a different language. It makes it really hard to run that airport efficiently. And that's how it is in shipping today. So we just don't need smarter AI. We need better connected data that everyone can use. I wish this was history, but I think this is still the daily life of many ships. Cruise deals with hundreds of handwritten, repeated, and disconnected checklists, just to keep things running and stay compliant. It's slow, it's easy to make mistakes, and the information is hidden from those who could use it to improve. Imagine if we could turn all that paper into useful insights. And we have a problem on board as well. The onboard systems, for instance, the bridge, safety, or engine, all speak different languages. And every new app needs a custom integration. And most of these systems, they lack reusable APIs, so every connection means new code, more cost, and vendor lock-in. And when you have more apps, you get more tangible architecture. And spaghetti architecture is the opposite of scalable. So the delusion is to create a data layer that integrates once and make it the data reusable across the systems. So I would say AI isn't held back by lack of modules necessarily. It's missing foundations that slows us down. There are no open standards, so a system can't talk to each other easily, preventing interoperability. Data is still siloed and messy, making it hard to train useful AI. And most onboard systems don't have APIs, so they can't easily share data or connect in real time. And we're missing the infrastructure to move data securely and efficiently from ship to shore. And until we fix these basics, AI will stay on the sideline, unfortunately, and not at the heart of maritime innovation. So, we have just seen how fragmented and frustrating the current reality is. But there's a shift. We don't need to be stuck here. We can design something better with smarter infrastructure that provides cleaner data and then supports intelligent automation. And if we get this right, we're not just cutting down the paperwork, we are potentially unlocking a new operating model for shipping. So let me introduce Telenor Maritime's digital ecosystem. It's designed to give you full control of your fleet's data, securely and in real time. It transforms scattered signals into strategic insights, enabling smarter decisions, faster operations, and new business value across your maritime operations. Maritime operations run on 3 types of data: sensor data from machines, human data from logs and checklists, and software from digital systems. These data rarely speak the same language. So when the data stays disconnected, it creates friction. And we can't automate. You can't get real insights or use AI effectively. unless we know what happened, why, and in what context. So we solve this by bringing all data together in a common machine-human readable language. It doesn't replace your existing system, it connects them, making the data reusable and trustworthy. Let's look at temperature as an example. A temperature spike is just a number, unless we know it happened after an inspection about a loose pipe, and the ship is in port. By combining all data types, we turn isolated signals into real actionable insights. And unifying data isn't just a tech upgrade. It's a foundation for smarter decisions, faster response, less manual work, and real innovation across fleets. Instead of messy point-to-point integrations, all systems are raw signals are fed into one signal structured pipeline. Think of it as turning a dozen of noisy radio stations into one clear channel. Signals are cleaned, harmonized, and contextualized. We define what each signal means, its units, and whether it's safe, compliant, or alert-worthy. This layer combines data management, smart logic, and APIs. So you get clean, meaningful data without reprocessing. The data you decide is synced to shore, and with a set of open APIs, you have full control of vessel data, both on edge for real-time operations and on shore for fleet-wide analytics of various use cases. This is a use case we now have running for one of our customers. They use digital checklists for filling out arrival and departure. This is then fed into the systems, which is then automatically uploaded to the digital logbook. The officer on the bridge then confirmed that it's correct arrival and departure date and time, and this is then used for the digital fuel reports, which is then automatically sent to the class society for validation. So the Telenor Maritime Digital Ecosystem connects data, AI, and applications across ship and shore, making operations safer, smarter, and more efficient. With the Edge API, data from crew, sensors, and third parties is collected and acted on in real time, right on the vessel. AI models run locally, enabling instant decisions without relying on the cloud. And clean contextual data flows secure to shore, powering fleet-wide visibility and remote support. Crew input is part of the loop, ensuring AI insights are grounded on real-world experience. A flexible ecosystem with no vendor lock-in also accelerates innovation and compliance. And the result, smarter decisions, less manual work, and consistent insights on board and ashore. But in maritime, AI won't transform operations just by being smarter. It will do. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. No, please, I have a question for you. So thank you very much. This sounds fantastic. I mean, you are solving all the problems that you described with your system, so that's super. But my question is, so the standards that are needed for all these systems to communicate, or the interfaces, are they becoming standardized? Because you said there were no common APIs, and that was kind of part of the problem.
Yep.
And then you come with the whole solution to this, but are we not just running into your solutions then, or is it open standards? If you haven't understand my question.
So it's a good question, and there's an initiative called IT for Maritime, what we are part of, and several companies that are represented here. And what we're trying to do is agree on these languages that we should put in place to exchange data. So we want to agree in the business to say there's like many standards out there that we potentially can use, but we want to agree on which standard to use for which use case. So there's an initiative now called IT for Maritime that everyone is welcome to join. It's an organization, open organization. And so we are supporting whatever standards that comes out of that organization.
Okay, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe something for the next conference to pick up. Thank you very much again. Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bartko Walinski, and I'm leading the development of digital products in marine sector of Rolls-Royce Solutions. While I was preparing for this conference, I was wondering what connections mean for me personally. And I have this memory in my head, you know, from the childhood, a phone ringing in the middle of the night. It was my father calling. He was a seaman for his whole professional life. And for whatever reason, these phone calls were always in the night, yeah? So it was Szczecin radio calling, and I guess you all still know how it is talking on the radio. So one person is talking, and the other one is listening, and then the other way around. It's not really a dialogue. It's not how we use the phones nowadays. And I myself, as a kid, I had like a standard text I was always telling to my father. So at school, everything is fine, and the dog is doing good too. And for whatever reason, this information about the dog was very important to me. But I can imagine now it was very important to my dad as well. You know, this is this part of home that we can transfer to the seaman. This is something saying, yeah, everything is going well. And some years later, we were already able to write first emails, and you were allowed to send actually one email per day, or it took one day actually to deliver an email, but anyway, you could exchange much more information. It was the first time when I learned the difference between bit and byte, and I will talk a little bit more about it soon. And when I think about it now, you know, with our current digital solutions, we are generating approximately 20 megabytes of data per hour looking for a standard hybrid vessel. So actually a completely different dimension than this what we had in the past. Our vision at Rolls-Royce is powering, protecting, and connecting the modern world. And I think this word connecting is really, really important, especially if you look at our different divisions. So from the left, civil aviation's very specific business, 35 types of aircraft. So, you know, usually we would look maybe at the bottom line, what the revenue is, but today let's focus on this top line, yeah? So civil aviation, defense, 160 customers in over 100 countries, so a huge network. But when you look to power systems, to MTU, where I'm working as well, we have over 40,000 customers in 13 different industries. So this is a completely different network and completely different requirements from the perspective of a digital product that we are talking about. So while we were looking at this data topic, you know, coming back to the question like what is the difference between bit and byte, and looking at the data that we are collecting right now, you know, 1 kilobyte, 1024 bytes, 1 megabyte, 1024 kilobytes, and so on and so on. So 1 big gigabyte is in the end 1 billion bytes. And yeah, when I think I was 11, and I had to learn actually that 1 byte is 8 bits, because in the end you had to pay per bit and not per byte while sending an email over the internet, over the satellite. And yeah, it would mean that the cost of 1 gigabyte right now would be, not right now, then the cost of a gigabyte would be around $6 million, and considering that we are generating between 7 and 10 gigabytes of data every month, I think we should look at the value of data that we have in a slightly different perspective. And now, in order to focus on our customers, in order to focus on the challenges of the ferry operators, I think that the list you can see on the screen is not a surprise to anybody here in the room, yeah? So you have high number of ships in operation with different ship types, different hull types, different sizes, on different routes, with very different propulsion systems, and in the end, different times between overhaul, maintenance schedule, and on top with different rotating crew. The effort of collecting data is very high, and it's very high complexity in order to analyze the data to get the valuable insights. And in order to solve this equation, we teamed up with Liberty Lines, and we started to analyze the data of Liberty Lines for the vessels which are equipped with our MTU hybrid propulsion systems. So if we take a look at Liberty Lines, they have 32 vessels with 100,000 departures every year, with 3.5 million passengers every year. And in the end, looking at all these routes, they were implementing 9 new hybrid vessels into the existing fleet. So the first question was, on which route shall we send the first hybrid vessel? Where do we have the possibility to build an infrastructure? How to gradually take out of service vessels with conventional propulsion, and how to utilize vessels with hybrid propulsion system. While the first decisions were made when to send the first vessel, how to run the operation, how to train the crew, we immediately started to collect the data. And in the end, yeah, it's all about data in order to optimize a fleet like this. So the first step, what we look at is live data. And I think we shouldn't underestimate this one. If you have a live access to the data from the vessel, you can really support your crew. You can really advise them as they go. Second important topic is real-time analytics. So you need to have the capability to run the analytics on board of the vessel as well in the offline environment. And we are deploying different functionalities based on traditional engineering, but as well going into the direction of artificial intelligence, or I would even say it's more machine learning what we do. And it means we can advise the captain as he goes, so you can add additional information on the bridge in order to optimize the operation of the vessel or switch into the right mode during the operation, and not analyze historical data later on with the info, you could have saved so and so much fuel yesterday, but actually you didn't. And what's coming on top is a seamless integration. You know, we have so big complexity on board, we have so many different systems, and it's still not that easy to get all the data with a single timestamp into one database. And this is essential in order to run any kind of analytics, so we need to make sure that the data that is being collected is clean and is really understandable. And now, looking at the results of our first step of cooperation with Liberty Lines, you have to imagine we are still at the beginning of the learning curve on these digital products, yeah? And we are still developing these digital products as we go. It means, looking at these results, we are developing features together with the ship owner, and we are able to deliver them as well immediately. And yeah, of course, it's all about reduction of environmental impact. And it is not one single solution that we have or one single thing to do in order to save CO2. It is a number of different advantages. Some are smaller, some are bigger. And the first one would be reducing of local air pollution, which is essential, especially if you are operating in UNESCO heritage areas. It's as well minimizing noise pollution in ports. I think we talked about it during this conference a lot. So for the nearby communities, it's very, very important. Using a hybrid system, you can as well improve the overall system efficiency. So you can imagine, for example, if in a hybrid system you are running your propulsion engines, charging the batteries, and you can switch off your gensets. You are not only running the diesel in a very good efficiency level, you're not burning fuel with the gensets, you are saving the operating hours of the gensets, so you can as well do your maintenance later. So in the end, you improve the overall system efficiency. And the next point about land charging infrastructure, yeah, I think it's more like a question or request, what can we do to improve it? Because this type of vessels will only get successful if we really can move forward with the charging infrastructure. And as we see, yeah, we still struggle here as an industry in general. And now looking at the fleets now and in the future, I believe that we will have hybrid fleets, and talking about hybrid fleets, I don't mean hybrid vessels. So we will need different kind of solutions for different kind of needs. So we will be looking into electric vessels, we will be looking into alternative fuels, hybrid vessels, and for many cases it will be the diesel, so conventional propulsion system, which will be the most efficient and as well the most environmental friendly solution. And yeah, when we are talking about digitalization, we have to take a look at the three different levels. Yeah, so rocking at the right-hand side, this is Ferdinando. He is the fleet manager of Liberty Lines, and we are collaborating with him directly to find out what are the pain points, what are the solutions that he needs to run his fleet. In the middle, strategic part, strategic level of cooperation, Mario and Goran, so our development team, they have a chance to talk directly to the customer in order to implement the software solutions. So something that digital products are enabling, what was not possible in the past for a traditional type of product development. And to the left-hand side, it's the crew, because we are not doing it for whoever, we are doing this for crew members. And the captain we can see on the photo, I was just told while I was preparing this presentation that he is already retired. But the interesting thing is that his son joined Liberty Lines and will be taking over the same vessel as a captain. So we can somehow see this life cycle closing. And yeah, so with digital technologies, we have to remember that we are in the end connecting people, and sometimes the most important information might be that the dog is doing fine. Thank you.
Much for the opportunity to present here. It's my first time in the Interferry. So far, so good. My name is Anne-Sophie Sagbakkenes, and I work as a consultant in DNV, mainly working with decarbonization pathways for different ship segments, also ports, energy providers, and governments. And today I will present an economic study for decarbonization . However, in this study, we have compared other alternative fuel strategies. So first, the case study input parameters. This study investigates the ability of different fuel strategies in operation. So we have 4 different fuel strategies investigated. That was conventional fuel, or MGO, LNG, and methanol, and also compared them against onboard capture. converting 100% within the EU. As mentioned, we have 4 fuel strategies considered in this study. First, the baseline vessel. It can use MGO and also green MGO, and it will not convert. Then we have a methanol dual fuel vessel that can use green MGO and MGO before conversion, and then it retrofits in 2035, enabling it to use green methanol, so not fossil methanol considered in this study. Then we have an LNG strategy that can use also fossil MGO and green MGO before conversion, then also LNG and green LNG after conversion. Lastly, we have the onboard carbon capture case that will retrofit a capture system and storage for carbon capture. All these strategies can also choose to pay their way out of decarbonization, so they can choose to pay penalties and also Tier 1 and Tier 2 costs for the net zero framework of IMO. The model that we use in this study is called the fuel path model, which is a tool for assessing and comparing decarbonization strategies for individual ships or fleets. The same model is used in DNV's maritime forecast, for those of you who have heard of this report. We have many different input parameters, and listing them would take a long time, but they're considering the ship specification, of course, and also the different fuel strategies input that's different for each strategy. So then we choose which regulations the ship has to comply with. In this study, we have included all of them, or many of them that is relevant within the EU. So it's net zero framework of IMO, it's EU ETS, and also Fuel EU Maritime. We do scenario-based analysis, not to find what is most likely, but to find the most robust strategy across several different scenarios. So therefore, we have 5 different price scenarios in this study regarding fuel prices, CO2 deposit cost for the CCS case, and so on. So then we get annual costs optimized year by year and for each fuel strategy. And then we get a lot of different results to compare. Among them, total cost of ownership. So this is the first graph from results for this study. And this, the total cost of ownership, gives us a good indication of what the most optimal fuel pathway would be for the case study ship. So here we see the total cost of ownership accumulated for the baseline scenario. First, we can notice that all the strategies pay some penalties or some carbon cost. They pay EUAs, they pay Tier 1 and Tier 2 cost, and one of them also pays for Fuel EU penalty. We can also see that for this scenario, choosing alternative fuels would be less costly than continuing with a more conventional setup. Among these 4 technologies, carbon capture has in this study the lowest total cost of ownership, and for this scenario, and as it can continue to use cheaper fossil fuels rather than paying for more expensive carbon neutral fuels, but while still reducing CO2 emissions very significantly. This next graph shows the range of annual costs for the 5 different price scenarios collected. So the yellow area is the range of annual costs for the conventional, the LNG, and the methanol vessel. And the green area compared against is the onboard carbon capture. So this shows that onboard carbon capture can compete in the study with other decarbonization solutions. As we can see, the range of annual costs is in the lower area of the range, at least after 2037. Then on to some other aspects in the economics. We have operational and technical implications when using carbon capture. In this study, we capture about 50 cubic meters, or a bit more than 50 tons of CO2 per day. And if we consider a route where we deposit CO2 every other day, we would need 100 cubic meters of storage. Then we would also need the deposit infrastructure to be in place in port. So here it would be every other port, but still it needs to be developed. We would also need trained crew to be able to operate the capture system safely. And lastly, one possible technology to explore is the solution where you have containerized storage, where CO2 is collected and transported on and off by trailers. But whether this is economically beneficial to having more conventional CO2 storage is not looked into in this study. However, we would need about 4 containers in order to store the same amount of CO2. Some technical challenges is the footprint and the weight on board. This could affect the capacity of the vessel. It could also affect the stability of the vessel depending on where you choose to place the capture system and also the storage. Safe storage when handling CO2 and also for RoPax would be very important, as mentioned, where the cargo is people. We also have to account for additional fuel consumption, 30% additional fuel consumption in this case. And lastly, it would be an individual it would be different for each individual ship if carbon capture is feasible for that ship. So it might not be a solution that fits all. In a white paper that DNV published last year, we looked a bit more into carbon capture in detail for the whole maritime industry, so concerning many different segments. This figure from that paper summarizes the challenges and opportunities for different ship segments. And if we just look at the RoPax segment here, we can see that one of the potential benefits for RoPax is the need for less volume due to the high frequency of port calls. However, it will be important to have acceptance for simultaneous operations in order for the business case to be as good as possible. So we need to be able to on-load cars and passengers and also offload CO2 in order for it to be as good as possible. One benefit or challenge could be the integration with local CO2 value chains. But this does, of course, depend on where you are and if this is at all relevant. One challenge is the weight capacity, as mentioned, and it can limit the capacity for cargo or for people. And lastly, one potential showstopper could be passenger safety, and it will definitely affect where you can store the CO2 on board. Lastly, some conclusions. So this study shows an advantage for alternative fuels compared to conventional fuels. For this case study ship, it will be different if you do a study on another ship. It shows that carbon capture can compete with other decarbonization solutions for RoPax, depending, of course, on fuel prices, carbon costs, deposit costs, and regulatory acceptance. Then, for this case, it would be sufficient with 100 cubic meters of storage tanks to capture the CO2 from 2 days of voyage. One advantage for the RoPax segment is that it has frequent port calls, which allows smaller storage tanks than many other segments. We've looked at projects where we're looking at thousands of cubic meters needed to store the amount of CO2 captured on one voyage. So a bit more an advantage there for RoPax. And lastly, passenger safety and additional weight are some of the technical barriers. Thank you.
A lot of people active with their phones during the session, so I'm sure there will be a ton of questions. My glasses are not as new as they should have been, so let's move over here. Jonas, the first question is for you on the electrification, if that was your new strategy.
Yeah, thank you. I was expecting that. I would say I will refer to Niklas Mortels on this Fair Leader panel this morning. He said, we know how to build a ship, but the infrastructure is almost impossible. So now we only sit and wait. We don't want to sit and wait. We want to take it step by step. The bottleneck is charging a ferry like that, not to have a ferry like that. So we have typically, I heard, was it Dover or Calais had a 4 megawatt power into the port. We are lucky, we have 10 megawatt. But if we electrify, let's say, our fleet of 3 vessels, and in peak season we potentially have, if we use your figures, it's potentially 120 megawatt in 45 minutes. And the power lines going to the island is substandard already today, so there is a third line to be built in 2031, I think. So it is a bottleneck, and if we build a ship like that now, we would have to sit or wait or run it in diesel electric mode. And we think it's better off to build a ship like we're doing right now, using existing fuel and then continue to develop either hydrogen or could be methanol or some other fuel. And we could operate it for 8-10 years before we...
Thank you very much. So next question, that's for me. The estimated lifespan of batteries, I can't remember. But we've just done an LCA analysis on the route, and there we calculated with 4 battery changes. And I remember that the CO2 burden of the batteries, they are saved in 42 days. But I can't remember the exact lifetime of the batteries. So Pino, next question is for you. Ship sides and roof lengths, aren't they perfect for electrification in your operation?
I wish, but it's impossible. I mean, you know, we use HSC, 30 nodes operational. They start the engine in the morning and they finish in the evening, continuously going. In order to guarantee the power for that speed and operational capacity, I should have a barge behind us with a battery size with actual technology so huge that it's unrealistic. I mean, it could be in the future. I don't exclude that, but at the actual level of technology and size of the battery and the demand of energy necessary for all the operational situations, I would say that that's technically unfeasible.
I agree with you. So, but next question, that's for Anne-Sophie. Are we only drinking mineral water, or what is it used for?
I don't think everything goes to beer, but when it's captured in the ship, it's stored on board, and then it's offloaded for permanent storage. Of course, it could be that some of the CO2 would be possible to utilize either for beer or soda, or it could be used for producing e-fuels. However, I think most of it would have to be stored for permanent storage.
Yeah. Okay. It was a very interesting presentation. So next question is actually also for you. The biggest obstacle in carbon storage, what is that actually?
I think on board, I think the technology looks good, or I think it's not a too complicated technology. So if you have the room, of course, that could be an issue for RoPax. If you have the room for the capture system, it's sort of a new funnel that you have to have room for, in addition to the storage. However, I don't think that's the biggest obstacle with the storage, as mentioned. But definitely the infrastructure for depositing the CO2. So land-based CO2 capture is being developed, and the hope would be that also maritime could tap into the infrastructure here for permanent storage.
Okay, thanks a lot. Next question. Will onboard carbon capture be cheaper than direct air capture on land? That's an offset, of course, but...
Yeah, so I have not looked into this, but I guess economy of scale would prefer the on-land part. However, in order for shipping to sort of do their part, I think also it would be a good thing to have CCS on board as well. But I haven't looked at those costs myself.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. Let's go down to Pino again. Competition from regional airlines, is that something you experience?
Actually, I congratulate all the questions. They are really spot on, very interesting. Well, I would say that yes, we did, but COVID has actually changed a lot since the cheap, low-cost airlines have bumped up their prices significantly. And you all experienced that because, you remember that we were using Ryan for 20 euros. Now, for 20 euros, they don't even give you the access to the toilet. So the competition now is way less intense because we guarantee a point-to-point, port to port, means city center to city center. We're more competitive, less transit time, and in terms of price, we can guarantee, well, below 300 kilometers of distance, we are more competitive or still less challenged by airlines. But that was somehow like a byproduct or a spillover effect of COVID, if one good thing came out of that, at least for the ship owning side. So I would say it was more intense when they were really, really heavy on pricing, and now it's getting more reasonable. We cover two different kind of markets.
Yeah, okay, thanks a lot. There's also a time aspect where the trigger between airlines and ships, we have a lot of advantages in time. Somebody wants to know if any of you have considered nuclear. I guess it's a question for you, Jonas, or...
I could answer a little bit, because sometimes people see a small modular reactor in news and it looks like a battery, but it's not a battery, it's a heat source. And we have a steam system on board. So, of course, it's obvious thinking we could put a heat source on board this type of vessel. But there are some other issues, and I think we will see those reactors on shore before we see them on ship, because then you could make use of district heating, low temperature. So it makes more sense to maybe use them to charge batteries or something and even it out.
Okay, excellent. So are the aluminium catamarans designed according to HSC code? Yes, they are.
Hopefully.
And I assume yours as well, Jonas, but yeah, Molslin is designed for high-speed craft code, yeah. But great presentation, they say. They were really happy about that one. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fuel-saving opportunities for your system?
Yeah, so it really depends on how we look at it. I know a standard answer, but in fact, if we are not considering the charging infrastructure, yeah, for this local pollution, we would have no emissions, which is a huge advantage going fully electric. And if going for a hybrid ferry with a high speed, 25 plus knots, it's more about optimization of the propulsion system. And then we see possibility to reach 10%
Hello, everyone. We finished showing the conference. Trisha, sorry that we had to cut it. I hope you learned a lot in the Interferry conference that we attended in Sorrento, and we'll see you again. We'll play more videos in the coming weeks. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and see you next time. Bye.
Anytime, maritime.
Anytime Maritime.
Anytime, maritime.
Anytime Maritime.
Anytime, maritime. Anytime, maritime.